Hi, I'm Tara, and welcome to Les Do Books. Email me at tara@thelesbianreview.com with any questions or comments, or come join our Facebook group, the Lesbian Review Book Club. I'm pretty excited today because I'm actually joined in my home in Calgary, in my kitchen, by Andi Marquette, awesome author and co-owner of Dirt Road Books. And she's here today so we can chat about how fanfic has led to the current landscape of lesfic as we know it. Welcome, Andi, to Calgary.
Oh my God, you guys. Like, I asked Tara if I could live in her basement.
It might happen. She just has to renovate it herself.
We don't know. We'll see.
Can you drywall and mud and tape?
Actually, yes.
Oh, all right, you're in. All right.
Woo! It's settled, you guys.
I have a new adopted daughter. Her name is Andi.
Okay, so y'all, yes, I am actually in Calgary. I'm sitting here in Tara's awesome kitchen, and we're waiting on the kids to come home, and I know some of you are familiar with the kids, so hopefully it's going to be cray.
Yeah.
And we shall see. But right now we're going to talk about dun 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 fanfic, and I know a lot of lesbian fiction readers also dabble in fanfic. Do you, Tara? Are you a fanfic person?
I am a fanfic reader. I am not a fanfic writer. And for anybody who's interested, we actually put a list up, I think it was late last year, on the Lesbian Review. Lee Winter, Katie Williamson, and author G. Benson all helped out with that. And if you read nothing else, we're in agreement that you should read Truth and Measure by Telenu, because that story is 300,000 words of Ice Queen age gap beautifulness.
Let's get that and make sure everybody hear that. Truth and Measure.
Truth and Measure.
And Measure. There you go.
Yeah, it's a Mirandy, so that's Miranda and Andy from Devil Wears Prada, and it's just gorgeous, and will eat your life for a week.
Unless you read fast.
Unless you read faster than me. All right.
Well, I don't actually read Devil Wears Prada fanfic, and I'm not shocked that there is a fanfic for it, because there's fanfic for everything.
Literally.
And I noticed when I posted the other day on, I think it was the chat show page that the Lesbian Talk Show has, somebody asked a question, or maybe it was the Lesbian Review page, asked a question about what fanfic is. So some people don't know what fanfic is, so let's educate.
Okay.
Basically, fanfic is when a writer takes the characters from a show, a TV show or a movie, and makes up their own story, or continues a story in a way that the show does not. So you're basically playing in somebody else's sandbox using their characters, but you're creating your own storylines, and oftentimes you're bringing in your own characters to supplement those characters. And so there are different types of fanfic. There's what we call canon, C-A-N-O-N, and that means the actual storyline that appeared in the movie, the book, the TV show. Then there's what's called uberfic, and that's where you take the characters and you put them in a whole different universe. Like, for example, I write Klexa fanfic, which is based on the characters from The 100, but I set them in the canon universe. If I were to do an uberfic, I would set them in an alternate universe. I would set them in modern day, like, I don't know, Toronto or something. And that would be the same characters, the same kinds of characterizations, but in a totally different setting.
That's right.
That's how lesbian fiction came about, was because a lot of lesfic authors that you know today, Lori Lake is one, K.G. McGregor, I believe, wrote fanfic. Katie Williamson wrote fanfic, and set their stories in Uber areas, and then recreated the stories to publish them as lesbian fiction. So Radcliffe also.
Oh my God, so many of her early ones, I believe, are Uber Xena stories. Jericho by Anne McMahon. Of course, I have to mention Anne McMahon at least once per podcast.
And we're fangirling
again. Jericho, I believe, was one. Jay says that Backwards to Oregon wasn't, but it sure kind of reads like one.
Really? Mm-hmm. Why do you say that? I don't think it was.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I thought it was because it is up on whatever one of those Xena sites was. Mm-hmm. Okay. Academy of Bards?
Well,
or what? One of those
Academy of Bards does have like
some original fic.
Yeah.
But it reads like it because Luke is tall, dark, brooding, kind of butchish. And, well, I mean, not kind of butchish. Luke lives as a man. Hello. actually passes as a man for decades.
Dun dun dun.
Right? And Nora is that like petite, spunky blonde. Like it's so that's I would say the only thing that's a bit of an issue with how many of the stories that were Ubers. Again, Madam President. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's one.
That's like a huge one. Kind of one of the best loved ones, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
If that pairing ever comes up again, whether intentional or not, there's always the question of, is this an Uber or not?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the tall, dark, brooding character versus the short, blonde, spunky character. That comes out as Xena fiction. Yeah. I would argue.
Yeah.
And I know there are other. Well, the funny thing is, you guys. Oh my God, I'm going to come out here. I am not actually a Xena watcher. I mean,
me neither.
Every once in a while, I would watch an episode, and it was cool to see Xena running around and kicking ass and taking names, but I was just never really in that fandom. And when I originally published Friends in High Places, there was a British site that was selling it legit. It was a legit site. But they had it listed as Xena Uberfic. And I had to write to them and say, I actually don't watch Xena. I don't know what that's about. So they took that distinction down. But it was like but that was the association that people have with lesfic is that anything, at least back then, which was 2007, 2008, that came out was immediately associated with fanfic, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that in a disparaging way. No. It's just that there was just like this assumption, because so much lesbian fiction has its roots, rightfully so, in fanfic, and a lot of our writers do come out of that tradition. I am doing it backwards. Yeah. I started out as a non-fanfic writer, and now I'm writing like a huge Klexa fanfic. So
how do you find writing fanfic versus your original fic?
The thing about fanfic for me is that it's really freeing, because it's not going to go into any kind of editing. There's not going to be a cover. Yeah. There's nobody going to like be this, you need to redo this scene. Well, unless a beta reader decided that I needed to redo a scene. But I find it liberating, and I love, in my fanfic, I mean, I work with some canon characters, but I've also introduced a whole slew of new ones that readers actually really like. And I'm staying true to the world to a certain extent, and taking it off in the little directions that I find interesting, that sort of have canon roots in the show, but I'm kind of exploring it further. Yeah. And so I'm actually creating in somebody else's world. So it's sort of two processes. I get to use things that were already established, but I'm also creating. Yeah. So the work has already been done to a certain extent, and I'm just finding it really, it's the most liberating project I've done. And it's right now it's at, I think, 360,000 words. Oh my God. Which is not unusual for fanfic, okay? It's not unusual to find tomes, 100,000 words, whatever, because it's just a lot of fun. You just like, woohoo, and you just like, I'm going to do this. And the reason I started writing was because I was so pissed about what happened to the Lexa character in the 100. And this was my protest. I'm rewriting season 3 is what I'm doing.
I think that's one of the things that I love as a fanfic reader, is that it kind of, obviously I'm not writing it, but just the idea of the fiction righting the wrongs that have been done in the original story. And the one, I don't even know what you call it. It doesn't matter. The one that really worked for me was actually going and finding fanfic about Mass Effect, the video game series. Because for me, I was so into that series. I started playing, I think it was shortly before the second game came out. It's a trilogy. And basically I invested like 5 years into that series. Oh my God. And by the time the last book came out, and I don't even know how many times I've played it, the first 2 games, beginning to end, and then I played the third game, and I'm going to go ahead and spoil it, because guess what? If you haven't played Mass Effect 3 by now, it's been out for years, and
get over it.
Get over it. Shepard dies, and I've invested in this relationship that she had with this character Liara for like 5 years, and their talk about having little blue babies together, and I just love them as this couple. They each have these incredible arcs. It's this wonderful thing, and at the end, she dies.
What do we call that?
Garbage.
Bury the gays trope.
Well, I mean, they die whether you play as male Shep or femme Shep, but still, like, I was so upset. I actually, like, grieved that game, And when I found fanfic, and especially some of Ray Magden's stories in that area, and instead carries on as if, you know what, she actually doesn't die. They build a life together. They have their kind of little like, babies, and they have a lot of crazy, awesome sex along the way.
Right on.
And it really helped because I kind of accepted that as that's my ending. That's the way the story actually goes for me. I don't accept the ending that Shepard died. So. Yeah.
And I think, well, in terms of representation of queer people, fanfic has been empowering.
Yeah.
Is that the word I want? And all it takes is, and it's funny because I was just reading this article on FemSlash. All it takes is like just a look to be exchanged between like two characters of the same sex, and boom, somebody is already writing fanfic.
Yeah.
And creating an amazing storyline and a plot line around that. And it's, if you venture into the fanfic world, you will find like, you're going to find a huge array of approaches, but you're going to find a huge array of quality and quantity and, you know, whatever. You're going to find things that you really, really like. And the thing about the fanfic community is you can interact directly with the writer on their, a lot of them have like websites or Tumblrs that you can post on, or you can post directly on that work and leave comments and kudos. And so it's been a very interactive experience for me that I don't normally get, because it's like as soon as I post an installment, and I'm pretty good about doing one every 1 or 2 weeks, somebody's like boom comments within like an hour or two after I've already posted it. So that's something that I'm not used to. So I like, you know, go back and forth with people on things that they've noticed or not. And for the most part, the reception I've gotten has been really good. And I think helpful, because some have offered some really interesting critiques and comments. And so that's been helpful in terms of where I want to take the story.
I find too that a lot of the authors in lesfic who have come up through fanfic seem to find it a little more natural to have that reader interaction too, because they're used to it. And also when occasionally beta reading for those authors, which I don't do often, but once in a while I'll agree to beta read a book, and they have the thickest of skins because they have been forged in the fire of fanfic. And there are reactions to that fanfic.
There are some people on fanfic, boy, I'll tell you what, man. Yikes.
Opinions. There are lots of opinions.
And it's because it's a fandom, and people are passionate about the characters. They're absolutely passionate, and they will nail you if they think you are not representing a character correctly. One of the compliments I've gotten is that I've tried to stay really true to how I perceive the characters in the TV show when I'm using canon characters. And I've gotten several comments about how we think you really nailed this, that you really got these characters right. And that is a huge compliment to me, because I work very hard on making sure that the characters stay true to their motivations and how they were presented, but also how they would evolve in a situation that I put them in. Because what I'm putting them in is totally different than what the show put them in. So I'm trying to like do that, to be true to the characters, but also let them evolve.
So you're saying that I need to watch 2 seasons of the 100 so I can read this?
The second season's the best. But I'm biased.
All right. I'm going to check if it's still on Netflix. Because Canadian Netflix is not as good as American Netflix.
That's sad. But I'm rewriting season 3, which was the season in which they killed Lexa. And not a spoiler, it happened a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
you know,
everybody knows we've all had our time to grieve. Whether we watch, you know what? I didn't even watch the show, and I was still upset when I saw that, because it just, at this point, not only is it disheartening and infuriating to see gay characters getting killed off, it also just feels like bad, lazy writing.
It was.
Like, really? Yeah. Do we actually have to do that now? At this point, it's the same. It's not, okay, maybe, I don't know if this is a fair equivalent, but I'm going to make it anyway. It's like throwing in having a woman sexually assaulted as a motivation for a man to go do something.
Right.
Like, it's just lazy, boring writing. Like, can't we do better? Can't we do more? And apparently not in some cases. But at least there's fanfic to right those wrongs, and at least we're getting a little we're getting a little better. We're getting a little more. We got Wonder Woman.
Oh, we did kinda.
Don't tell me too much. I'm going to see it in 2 days.
I straight up, I love the movie.
Yeah.
But, you know, in her Rebirth series through DC Comics, Greg Rucka is one of the writers, and he has unabashedly stated that Wonder Woman is a queer character. She's queer. Mm-hmm. You can't grow up on a goddamn island full of Amazons, full of women only, and not have some sort of queerness. Even if you're asexual, you can still have some sort of queerness going on. Mm-hmm. And so he's been like, yeah, she's queer, whatever. But, you know, the movie kind of like, straight wash that. But whatever. It's a fabulous movie, and I highly recommend it. And I'm sure there's already shit tons of fanfic about her relationships with the Amazons. I'm going to go look for it right now. We should look for it. We should totally look for it. I haven't looked for it yet.
We're going to do that next. All right. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to say about fanfic in the likely 2 minutes before my family gets back in this house?
We have to hurry, guys, because as soon as Tara's family gets back, it's going to get all cray up in here.
It's going to get loud.
It's getting loud in here. Just that there are a lot of really cool things about fanfics. There's a lot of cool things in the fandoms, and I will say that some of the fandoms are also really awesome activists. The Klexa fandom, for example, raised $150,000 for the Trevor Project, which is a suicide prevention hotline for LGBTQ youth in the wake of killing the character. And they raised like $30,000 within 3 days or something for a school, and I believe it was Thailand, for one of the main characters of the show who was raising money for that.
That's wonderful.
And they launched, or at least some of them launched a con, the Klexicon, that happens now once a year. The first one was this past March, 2,200 people at the first one to deal with queer rep and women's rep in media. And the turnout was amazing. That's awesome. So there's a lot of cool things coming out of fandoms, and they can be inspiring, but they can also be, you know, like you were saying, hotbeds of critique.
It's true. It's true. All right. So, Andi, if people want to connect with you online, how can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter, and I'm really kind of, you know, enigmatic. My handle's at Andi Marquette. They can find me on Tumblr, Andi Marquette. I know it's hard. They can find me at my website, andimarquette.com. Facebook. Oh my God, Andi Marquette, you guys. For real. Stop the madness.
All right, so that is it for this episode. Thank you so much, Andi, for joining me. I'm Tara. You've all been listening to Les Do Books. Don't forget to email tara@thelesbianreview.com with your questions or comments. Come join the Facebook group, the Lesbian Review Book Club, to talk about anything that you're reading and loving. You can find me and all the other podcasters, including Andi, on the Lesbian Talk Show channel at our Facebook group, the Lesbian Talk Show chat group. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate this show and subscribe to find this and many other great shows. All you need to do is search for the Lesbian Talk Show on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher. I don't know why my reading cadence was weird there, but you know what? It is what it is. Bye, Sheena. We love you.
Bye, Sheena. Love you for real.